Peace be unto you. Mysticism, as described in the previous video, if you have not seen it, maybe you want to see the short introduction, is a universal inner teaching towards reaching union or wusul with the divine. And as we discussed, what we call mysticism in English exists within all the great religious traditions, because even though it might be from Buddhism in Eastern Asia or Islam in the Middle East, North Africa, West Africa, or Christianity in the West, the reality of man is one, and the human condition and human nature is the same. And throughout all traditions, there has been deep seekers of truth, seekers of depth, seekers of deeper inner meaning. And therefore, in all religious traditions, you have mystical paths within those traditions. If we briefly look at this schematic, which I drew, we see that each religion can, in a sense, be divided into the exoteric and the esoteric. The exoteric means the part of the religion which is concerned with society, concerned with the outer, the form, the rituals, how to behave, what to do, what type of moral conduct to carry out, what I should do in my life, when I should pray, how I should pray, what I should cite when I pray, what is right and wrong within a societal or cultural aspect. And then within each of these traditions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, although smaller than the other tradition, but still Judaism, Hinduism, or the Vedic tradition, what we can call Hinduism, Buddhism, and also Chinese thought. Within the Christian tradition, for example, you have the churches, the different churches. You have the various different Orthodox churches. And then you have the Catholic Church. And if you study the history of Christianity, a large part of this was conducted during the Council of Nicaea, 325 after Jesus, because many were claiming to have the true teaching of Jesus. And some of these churches are before the council, and they refer to themselves as Orthodox. And the Catholic Church, to a large degree, was founded then in Rome, and later on became the Lutheran Church, or based on Martin Luther's basically protest against some of the Catholic practices, which also gained a large following. Within Islam, you have basically the Orthodox, different types of Orthodox schools. You have Sunni, which is what probably most Muslims would refer to themselves as Sunni. You also have Shia. Sunni and Shia are based on a little bit of a different beliefs, you can say. And it has to do with Hazrat Ali, one of the Sahabas of the Prophets, and how that is dealt with, and who is what's basically the lineage of succession of the Prophet, and so on. So, and then you have the very exoteric schools, the very form-based schools, the quite literal interpretation of Quranic schools, that everything is taken very much at face value with no extra value added, so to speak, no mystical interpretation. And these schools are known as a Salafi, So Salafi is very much based on Wahhabism, which comes from Abdul Wahhab, and which originated from Ibn Taymiyyah. These are very exoteric schools, very form-based, not very mystical. And within Judaism, you have traditional Orthodox Judaism with the synagogues, the rabbis, and so on. I'm not an expert on Judaism. And also in the Eastern traditions, in Chinese thought. And by the way, Alan Watts has an incredible video on this, or a speech on this. I really recommend to watch the speech Alan Watts made on Taoism. He explains it perfectly. You have the traditional Confucianism, which very much is dealing with society, societal norms, what role you are supposed to have in society, and so on. And it has been a very effective societal governance sort of system or philosophy. And within the Vedic traditions, or in India, or what you can call Hinduism, you have various different schools, 6 main schools, and they have changed throughout history. But you basically have multiple different deities and various different parts of the tradition, including some elements like the holiness of the Ganges River, the caste system, and how to eat, and what God to pray to, and what mantras to cite, and so on. And you have various traditions within this. And when it comes to Buddhism as well, you have the exoteric or the outer schools, such as Mahayana and Theravada, which are more popular forms of Buddhism. Mahayana is very popular. According to what I've understood from Buddhists, it's a more ritualistic form of Buddhism. It's ceremonial and devotional, and so on. And it's very popular. And even within these popular forms of Buddhism, you find such teachings like heaven and hell, and if you do bad, you will get to a place that you can call hell, where someone is going to burn you alive, and so on. So you have these exoteric schools. But as human beings, there are those people, I don't know if it's 5, 10, or 10% of each population, that always want to strive for depth, for ultimate truth. They want to dig within. They want to really discover the nature of reality, the ultimate nature, the ultimate truth of reality. And what is not known to everyone is that this deeper seeking of inner truth exists in all religions. And that is when the attention is turned away from society, from form, from the rituals and the behaviors and the morals that are expected of you by society, such that we have today. Even if the Western world is secular, we still have a very outer, exoteric, sort of societal religion, so to speak. You're supposed to get educated, then you're supposed to get a decently paying job, focus on your career, get married, have a wife, have children, buy a house, and be a law-abiding citizen, and so on. There are certain norms in the Western society that exist still today. But in each of these traditions, there are those, and Alan Watts explains it so beautifully when he contrasts Taoism and Confucianism, those who want to be, they want to strive deeper. They feel that this is not all that life is about. There is a deeper meaning, there is a deeper truth within. So the societal expectations to a certain degree feels fake. They feel not fake but unauthentic and insincere. These people, these bohemians, these, you can say, ultra-liberals or new age type of rebels, essentially rebels, very much rebels. These rebels exist in all cultures, and they are the ones who want to dig deep within and live a life, you can say, of inner peace, or focusing on the inner authenticity and digging in and finding the ultimate truth. And within Islam, this has traditionally been the tradition of Sufism or Tariqah. And Sufis have always had problems in Muslim society because by their very nature they are a little bit liberal, free spirits, want to dig deep within and reach these mystical unions with God and reach a form of ecstasy. So there are Sufi practices like zikrs and chants and most people have seen the whirling dervishes, as they are called, the turning of the Mevlevi order, and some other orders that are related. I understand that popularized by Rumi or Sheikh Jalaluddin Rumi. These practices have been very controversial, and there have been Sufis who have been executed for their ecstasies, such as Al-Halaj, when he reached some mystical state and said, "I am the truth." And in all societies, in Christianity, you have the Gnostics. Gnosis means that essential union with God, or a Gnostic is someone who is at that state of union with God. And they have been persecuted and they have been executed by the church, called heretics, blasphemers. And in the Muslim world, the Sufis are called mushriks, or people who commit shirk, or bid'ah, innovation, kufr, disbelief, because of the inability or the insincerity of just simply abiding by societal norms, but wanting to dig deep within to find the ultimate truth. And in the Christian tradition, it's not only the Gnostics. There have been deep thinkers. Think about Isaac Newton, Galileo Galilei, the whole intellectual, philosophical sort of group of scientists. They also wanted to dig deep within and find out the mysteries of the universe. And because it broke from societal belief systems, they were also labeled heretics and so on. And the same thing within the Buddhist tradition. You have the, if I pronounce it correctly, Vajrayana Buddhism or Tantric Buddhism, which is based on more mystical practices that some Buddhists claim are not rooted in the teachings of Buddha, such as chanting certain mantras and a little bit magical, you can say, and a very strong master-disciple relationship. And many of these Buddhists who also want to dig deep within, some of them withdraw completely from society. They say, no, it's not the dunya, it's not the material world. I want to spend my life focusing on within. And that's where you have the monastic traditions. You also have monastic traditions in Hinduism, monastic traditions in Christianity. To a certain degree, all monastic traditions are mystical or esoteric. They are, because a monk or a nun withdraws from society, and that's known as khalwa in Sufism, or spiritual retreat, satsang in Hinduism, or the monastic tradition. And there in Hinduism you also have these deeper, contemplative, universal teachings of, for example, Advaita, Vedanta, non-dual, not two, only one. And in China, of course, the way of Tao. What is Tao? Yes, that is the mystery. What is Tao? Tao, essentially, in these mystical traditions, you will find these words like Tao, Zen, Yoga, Marifa, Wusul, Gnosis, that many of these words mean the same thing. Because essentially, these mystical traditions, they all meet at the destination, and the destination is to reach that ultimate truth or union with the divine, which is to, you can say, completely experience yourself as the divine, that you are that light of Allah manifesting through this body, and your consciousness, your awareness is the Raqib, Muraqabah, the one who observes. Yes, that is Allah. And you experience yourself as separate from Allah, from God, because of what the mystics of all traditions call the ego. The Buddhist mystics say the ego is a false concept. The Sufis say the ego is the worst creation. The people of Kabbalah say similarly. The Gnostics say that the physical world is Satan. Advaita, they say there are not two, and they also talk a lot about the ego and the true self. And what is the true self, and who are you really? Know who you are. The Egyptian mystics spoke about knowing who you are. So all of these traditions, they meet at that center, the center point of every mandala that you can say. And that is the reality of who you are. The reality of your existence and my existence is one, and that is the reality of God. And that light, that life, that thing in us that makes us feel alive is Allah. That is God, and that is why, for example, in the Muslim tradition, one does not paint Allah or make it a statue or a picture, because how can you ever see the divine within you if your picture of the divine is in your mind limited to a statue? As Allah says in Hadith Qudsi, I am to my servants as He expects me to be. As Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ said in Hadith, he who knows himself knows Allah. The Prophet put it explicitly, when you know yourself, you know Allah. So, this is where they all meet, and that is the state where there is no self. There is no self. In the center of the mandala, there is no ego. There is no nafs. There is no sense of self. There is only the divine. Only the divine. Only the divine. And that teaching at the center of the mandala is what all 124,000 prophets throughout the world were sent in different languages, different traditions. That's what all of them taught. Because there is no such thing essentially as Buddhism, Sufism, or Hinduism. It is the same teaching. It always was the same teaching. But we are so focused on our culture, our identity, our languages, our traditions, our customs. We cannot see that the essence of the teaching of Buddha is the same as the essence of the teaching of Lao Tzu or Tao Te Ching, the essence of Muhammad Muhammad's teaching, of Jesus, peace be upon him's teaching, of Moses, of Abraham, of Krishna. It is the same teaching. It always was the same teaching. But we don't want to know ourselves. So we create so much illusion and so many boundaries that stand in our way from experiencing who we are. La ilaha illallah. There is only one God. La ilaha illallah. Allah is all that exists. Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Kulu Allahu ahad. Say Allah is one. It didn't say Allah is two. Allah is one. It also says Allah blows His spirit into man. Quran 15:29. If Allah is one and Allah blows His spirit into man, then what is the spirit? Then what is man? Man is spirit. Is there two entities, spirit and Allah? No, the spirit is Allah, so Allah is in man. So when we have prayed for thousands of years across different traditions, there are old prayers from ancient Sumeria, from ancient Vedic, from ancient Egypt, praying to God. It is the God within you, because that is who you truly are. But our illusion of the ego and mind block us from experiencing our true nature. And that is what the mystical path is, to take you back to your true nature. And being in a state of Islam, or complete surrender and peace with nature, Zen, there's everything being connected in Tao, the same, flowing with nature, not resisting nature. This is the mystical path. Traditions are many. We start the mystical path when we meet a guru or a sensei or a shivu or a sifu or a sheikh or a rabbi or a master of any of the traditions. The master has to be there. He has to be in a state of wusul or yoga or gnosis. He has to be a gnostic. He has to be a marifa. He has to be someone who knows himself, the true nature of self. So he can pull you from whatever tradition you are, be it Christianity, Judaism, Islam, whatever tradition that you have boxed yourself into, he can pull you to that, back to that original state of union from which you are born as the Spirit of God. That's why there are many different traditions. Even in Sufism, there are many different types of tariqah. They teach it a little bit differently, in different languages. There are sheikhs who are very calm. There are sheikhs who are very strong. There are sheikhs who are very knowledgeable. It's all to remove the darkness in us so that we can reach that state of oneness again. And some cannot have a sheikh because they cannot, maybe Arabic is too much for them. They maybe need a guru who speaks Sanskrit to them to get there. Or some might not like that. They might need a Zen master to speak the teaching of Zen to them to get there. But essentially, that is the core of mysticism. Many different mystical traditions starts when you take initiation with a teacher, and the teacher gives you the sound to get to that center point. We have not gone into detail on the mysteries of sound. The word kun. In the beginning was the word, in Chinese translation of the Bible. The beginning was the word. In the beginning was the Tao, the kun, the mantra. We have not gone into that. The Om, the Hu. Hope this video has been helpful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa